John, you look like you're sitting in an interrogation room.
Yeah, I'm interrogating myself.
One place in the city you can get some peace and quiet, probably.
Yeah.
It just has to be a different city.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in any other cities. I know what's going on at those other cities. I'm happy to be in Lakewood.
Good.
For sure. Oh, Sylvia's joining us. So for those on YouTube, we're just waiting for a quorum and Mary to get here, and we'll get the meeting called to order.
Oh, I know my camera's still working. I've got to cover that. There we go.
Hey, Sylvia.
Hi.
Hi, Sylvia.
We're gonna get started in a minute, Sylvia. We're just we're waiting for a few more attendees. Oh, you got the mountain scene too, looking good.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
That's so my husband can fix dinner and you're not watching.
But you might get some unexpected visitors if you let us see what's cooking.
Yeah, so that one, Sylvia, must be from Reflection Lake.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
Hi, Mary.
When we all share Zoom links, sometimes it's a little trouble in getting in. I didn't want to pop her off, so.
Yep, no worries. All right, I think we can, we got a quorum, 5:33, we'll call the meeting to order. And I show everybody but Fred, and I don't see our youth council, Brandon. Otherwise, we're all here and present and accounted for. Nikki sent us out the minutes. If everyone's had a chance to look those over, I'd entertain a motion to approve those.
I so move.
I'll second.
Sylvia and Alan. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none. Unanimous approval. Thank you, everybody. I had chatted with Nikki earlier, and we have no one for public comment. So we're on to new business and state of the city with our city manager, Mr. Caulfield.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Pleasure to be here this evening. I'd like to first start off with thank you for handling that public hearing at your last meeting regarding the renaming of Fort Steilacoom Park. And did also want to let you know that the mayor and I went down and met with the Nisqually tribe, their council, a couple of weeks ago, and just kind of outlined the process and what happened there and things along those lines. And they were appreciative of that. And then as a follow-up to that, the tribal council has asked for the full city council to meet with the full tribal council. And we're trying to set that meeting up sometime in next month in November. The sooner the better, actually. And one of the key, and I just wanted to just alert you, one of the key topics of that meeting is how the Nisqually tribe and the city's parks department can continue to partner on some initiatives that Ms. Dodsworth has initiated down specifically at Fort Steilacoom Park on a number of fronts. And actually, Ms. Dodsworth has put together a great presentation that I've shared with their staff, and hopefully that will be incorporated as part of the joint meeting. But again, just wanted to, first of all, thank you for that. And then secondly, just let you know that we're going to be having some pretty good conversations here with the Nisqually Tribe Council and their leadership team. I think let me, hopefully I can share the screen here. Oh, perfect. I got a little presentation. So again, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm gonna kind of touch on some of the key highlights of what's happening within the city of Lakewood. And, you know, first of all, this is by no means everything that we're doing. because we have an awful lot happening and going on in the city. And certainly if I don't touch upon something, or if you have questions, I'll try and answer those at the end of the presentation. I think, first and foremost, I think as everybody's aware, it's our 25th anniversary. Happy birthday, City of Lakewood. Of course, the Lakewood community has been around a long, long time, dating back hundreds, if not thousands of years, with, of course, the Native American tribes. At the same time, the city as an organization and as a municipal entity incorporated in 1996. And as we look back, the past 25 years, we have to ask ourselves the question, well, how did we do on the promises of incorporation? And really, there was 4 promises that were considered. The first was, local control, particularly in the area of zoning and land use. The other was public safety, and it wasn't just about, driving down crime, but also code enforcement and dealing with blighted properties. It was also about fiscal responsibility. A lot of the taxes and fees that were collected in Lakewood were going to other parts of the county. And by the way, that's how counties operate. That's just the way it was. But certainly upon incorporation, all of those tax dollars and fees now remain in the city of Lakewood. And then the last item was in the area of parks. And I think sometimes that might be forgotten, because on the map, when the city incorporated, there were some areas that were zoned green for parks and open space. But certainly they were not like they are today. And certainly our park system we have some absolute jewels. We have 14 parks ranging from the smallest one, Primley Park, over on Barlow Road, to, of course, the jewel of our system, Fort Steilacoom Park, which is a regional facility with an incredible amount of amenities that provides for a myriad of events and activities throughout each year. So when you ask the question, well, have we delivered on the promises of incorporation? I wholeheartedly say not yes to that, and then some. I think we actually exceeded on the promises of incorporation across the board. Now, with that said, there's still much more to be done. We've accomplished a lot, and the current city council has identified a vision of where we're going to be 30 years after incorporation, which is in 2026, so really right around the corner, 5 years from now. And it's really focused on who and what we are as a community, based on our history, our neighborhoods, our environment, municipal services, the diversity of our community, economics, and our education system, and the list goes on. And how the council plans on getting there is they've adopted these goals, these 6 goals that drives public policy and investment here in Lakewood, essentially every 2 years as part of the biennial budget process. However, because of COVID, the council actually recently adopted goals for 4 years, 2021 to 2024. However, that's not to say that they are not going to come back and revisit and update those on an annual or biannual basis. But that was a bit of a change. But again, this is what drives us day in and day out. We're focused. And by the way, these goals are not in any priority. They are all of equal importance. So economic development, continuing to enhance our infrastructure, of course, public safety, fiscal responsibility, transparency, and then being a robust community, which really for the council means bringing all those other goals together under one umbrella. I know probably people are, sick about talking about COVID, but the fact of the matter is that it's still part of who and what we are on a day in and day out basis. Back in the early part of 2020, the city, we began tracking this. I will say first and foremost, what we didn't do. This is what we didn't do. We did not panic. There was a lot of panicking going on. I would say there's probably still some panicking going on. But the city as an organization, as an entity, we did not. And the reason being is because we regularly train for emergencies and how to deal with them. Though I've been doing this now for almost 31 years, and I will tell you that in the emergency operations manual, I always turn the page on the pandemic, because there is a page on the pandemic. But quite frankly, I never thought that we would deal with a pandemic, even though one happened recently, a little over 100 years ago with the Spanish flu. But the benefit of having an emergency operations plan is that we were able to react very quickly to this pandemic and be able to adjust accordingly. And our focus first and foremost was the continuity of local government operations as it relates to the city of Lakewood. And we essentially took a three-pronged approach. The first was the continuation of municipal services. We did not cut back in any shape, form, or manner. A number of our employees began immediately working remotely, and that actually continues today. The exceptions really are police patrol and our M&O crew. A number of employees are still working remotely, either full-time or in a hybrid model, and will continue for the foreseeable future, even after the pandemic. Because of the COVID itself, we set up a COVID webpage, which still exists today, with a myriad of information for our residents, for our businesses, given the amount of federal funding that became available to help react to COVID. And then lastly, we began to evaluate as an organization, well, if there's going to be an economic decline, what kind of an impact does that have on our city's finances? And again, you know, the benefit there is we have a number of staff who have dealt with these types of downturns. The good news is that the downturn was not as severe as originally projected. And again, we kind of rolled the dice a little bit. Again, what we didn't do is we didn't panic. So I didn't start laying people off and, you know, cutting programs and services. Matter of fact, we went the other route. We continue to provide services. And we actually pushed a little bit harder, particularly on our capital infrastructure projects, because we realized there was an opportunity to get some work done while things were, quite frankly, shut down. And so that worked to our benefit. But at the end of the day, we did not skip a beat. And likewise, that continues today. I will say, and I'm sure you've all experienced it either personally or professionally, you know, to say it's been challenging or disruptive or hard or exhausting and demanding. It has been. It's been really hard, day in and day out. And, you know, myself and my staff, you know, we deal with that. At the same time, we all recognize as, you know, public servants that we're here to serve the Lakewood community. And I will tip my hat to my employees for the great job that they do day in and day out as this pandemic continues to have an impact on us. And I think that's a real positive reflection on all of them. You know, if you're not vaccinated, I'm vaccinated. My family's vaccinated. Get vaccinated. That's really the way this issue needs to be ended. I know people have differing opinions on that. I respect that. At the same time, if we want this to end, we got to get vaccinated. You know, the recent example that I use is, you know, I was in the military. Whenever I deployed overseas, which was on multiple occasions, I got all kinds of jabs. And I turned out all right. Well, at least I think I did. It's kind of a little bit of a joke. But in all seriousness, you know, when was the last time the FDA was wrong? I'll just say that. And the answer is I'm not aware of them ever being wrong. Matter of fact, they're always getting beat up for not pushing out, you know, drugs and the like in a faster manner. So again, get vaccinated. If not, please, you know, practice social distancing, wear your mask, et cetera, et cetera. Here are some resources, primarily through the Tacoma Pierce Health Department, which has been a great partner throughout this whole process in terms of either getting tested for COVID or getting vaccinated. Here in Lakewood, one of the most popular places in all of the counties in our town center. They do an incredible amount of business in terms of vaccinating people, not just in Lakewood, but Pierce County as a whole. You know, 2020, we had to cut back on some events, most events. However, in 2021, you know, Ms. Dodsworth and Ms. Martinez and her team are bringing back programs. And, you know, we just had Truck and Tractor Day, of course, Farmers Market, you know, in the summer concerts, the list goes on. Really what we weren't able to do was Summerfest. So knock on wood, we're hoping to be able to bring that back in 2022. Also, as we look out into early December, probably going to do another reverse parade of lights in the tree lighting or something along those lines. But again, 2021 was about bringing a lot of those community events back. And certainly they have been very, very well received by our community. That includes a number of youth programs as well. We've been slowly bringing those back. And we hope to be able to bring those back in full force in 2022 as well. The city was fortunate to be able to get some federal funding to be able to react to the pandemic. We received almost $2.7 million. And we only had a very short period of time to essentially make this funding available to the community. It all had to be essentially they first said October 31st of 2020, but then they extended it another month. But within about a 4 or 5 month period, we had a handful of city employees who were wearing 2-3 hats. They were doing their day job and then also working on responding to the pandemic, including allocating funding in support of our many human services partners, small businesses, landlords, childcare providers, as well as some of our other municipalities, such as the fire district and the library district and the water district, who did not have access to any of these funds. And then the city used a little bit of it to be able to pay for the things that we needed to do, primarily in the area of personal protective equipment and information technology and transitioning to a remote work environment. But you can see there that we were very effective in getting that money out. On the human services side, by the way, just for some numbers standpoint, we helped 72 businesses, 24 childcare facilities. LASA was great in helping 289 families get an average of $2,000 to help with their rent and their utilities. They did a fantastic job working with us on that. And then you can see a number of other agencies that we provided funding to, again, to further enhance and strengthen that safety net that was so needed, not just in 2020, but continues today, and really just enhancing what the city does on top of that as well. Matter of fact, we also received some CDBG monies that we still have available for low-income families for rental and utility assistance. And of course, that's on top of the millions and millions of dollars that both the county and the state got as well. So in terms of what the city got, we really got a small portion, but we certainly made very good use of those funds in helping our community. Right now, the city, we have, I'm sure you're all familiar with ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act that Congress passed. I will say thank you, Congress, for doing that. However, this would have been a little bit more helpful, probably sometime in 2020. And I'm not trying to be ungrateful there, but it would have been helpful a little sooner. But the good news is that those monies are now available. And we received our first tranche of $13.5 million a couple of months ago. The City Council recently appropriated 4.2 million of it or so in support of a number of projects. Prior to doing that, the council actually directed us beginning in May to do a community engagement plan to reach out to the community to hear where they wanted to see the monies invested. And really was no surprise. It was very similar to how we invested the monies from the CARES Act, which was in support of human services, social services, homelessness, business assistance, rental assistance, utilities, things along those lines. One of the biggest investments that we just finalized last week was appropriating $1 million in partnership with both Tacoma and Pierce County to buy the Comfort Inn over off of Hosmer to serve as a homeless shelter for our region, including Lakewood. And so that's in partnership with a third-party housing provider called Lehigh. They're based out of Seattle, top-notch organization. And so they're going to be taking on the day-to-day activities of that. And they hope to have that up and running here in a very, very near future. And again, Lakewood, our community, is going to be able to have access to that. As I talk about the safety net here in Lakewood and we go back to incorporation, the very first city council was keen on recognizing that Lakewood did need a strong safety net. And to say that that continues today is probably a bit of an understatement because it has grown significantly. And in the current biennium, and this is above and beyond the ARPA funds or the CARES Act monies, but the city's general government, we fund almost $4.3 million in a biennial basis in support of human services, housing, and homelessness. For a city of our size and scope, that's huge. That's very, very significant. other than the real large cities, the handful of very large cities in Washington state, they don't do what we're doing. I mean, they do, the big ones do, but not, the other cities, they really don't. And again, that's a reflection on why the city incorporated 25 years ago, and it continues today. We continue to appropriate 1% of our general fund in terms of, human services. We have a behavioral health contact team where we have a police officer that works with not one, but now 2 mental health providers and helping people in dire need. And on an annual basis, they help upwards of 500-600 people a year. These are the people that you don't see. These are the people who are on the cusp of really ending up on the street or in a worse situation that we help. We have a mental health resource coordinator in our court. We have the Veterans Treatment Court. We continue to work with LASA in expanding their facility and their site. We were an investor in helping them build their facility. Now we're working with them to expand their footprint and grow their facility down there. We continue to partner with Habitat for Humanity. They have built 41 low-income homes in Lakewood, primarily in Tillicum, and another 9 are going to be coming out of the ground in the very near future. The city, we're fortunate to receive CDBG and home federal funds. And as an example of that, we have invested $5.3 million of that over the last 20 years in support of just housing alone. And that's just on with the federal dollars that we receive. And the list goes on. And the point is that Lakewood is very, very proactive when it comes to dealing with the needs that exist in our community, whether it's housing, homelessness, and things along those lines. And I think one of the key results of that is Lakewood right now, we have the lowest rents in all of Pierce County. I don't know how long that's going to last because, the pressures from King County are continuing to move southward. But earlier this year, based on the empirical data, other than a part of Spanaway, Lakewood had the lowest rents in all of Pierce County. Matter of fact, our rents were 16% lower than the countywide average. And a lot of it, deals with a lot of the public programs that we have. Another one is our rental housing safety program, making sure that existing apartment complexes and rental units are maintained at a in a safe manner, rather than somebody coming down and bulldozing them and building something that's more expensive. On the state legislative side, we have great relationship with our state legislators. This past session, we had some huge wins. The first was finally the state legislature passed tax increment financing. Up until earlier this year, we were one of 2 states that didn't have that. That now allows cities to work hand in hand with new development to help maybe make infrastructure improvements or things along those lines to allow economic development to happen sooner rather than later. We were able to continue to obtain funding in support of our partnership program in our police department down at Western State Hospital. I mentioned LASA. We also worked with our legislators to secure a $500,000 state capital grant to help LASA begin to expand their facilities. And we're going to be working with them on some additional funding. We were also successful in obtaining $2.1 million in support of Wards Lake, $1.258 million in support of American Lake, and another $350,000 to finish up the needed improvements for turf and fields at Fort Steilacoom Park. And our very own Mary Dodsworth and her team deserve all the credit for that. That totals $3.7 million. That does not happen by accident. That happens because of Mary's leadership, and that happens because of the great team that she has, as well as the policy direction from the city council. And of course, these are projects that are going to get underway in the next, actually design is actually getting underway here in the near future, and hopefully turning dirt on some of those projects here in the next 6 to 12 months, if not sooner. Likewise, on the federal side, first of all, we had a transition in the middle of COVID from one member of Congress to another. Denny Heck left us, and Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland is now our new member of Congress. And I'll tell you what, it's been seamless. The transition from Denny to Congresswoman Strickland has been absolutely fantastic. She is very aware of what our needs and our issues are, not just in Lakewood, but as it relates to JBLM. She's instrumental in finally getting the ARPA funds that we need. Also continuing to work on infrastructure projects and funding that are important to Lakewood, whether it's the DCIP program, which was actually a new federal program that was created right here in Lakewood. Also continuing to work with medium-sized cities to try and create a transportation funding source for cities like Lakewood within the population of 10 to 75,000, which doesn't exist. And again, that is something that Lakewood is taking a leadership role on. So a lot happening on the federal front. Again, a lot of wins happening there. Again, want to recognize our federal delegation, our two great senators, and Congresswoman Strickland, who continue to do great work for us. Economic development really continues to be the tip of the spear for Lakewood. And the reason I say that is because in order for us to be able to do all the great things that our community expects and demands of us, we have to have a strong economic base to do that. And to say that Lakewood, there's a lot happening in Lakewood, and it's being driven by housing, entertainment, hotels, and light industrial and manufacturing. In 2020, in a pandemic year, we had our best year ever, $160 million in new investment. To put that in perspective, up until the last couple of years, new construction averaged maybe 35 million a year. We might have hit 50 once or twice. And what's happened is that, the leadership of the mayor and the city council and a lot of the policies that they have put in place is really what's driving this. And again, it's housing, entertainment, restaurants, hotels, warehousing, light industrial, just some fantastic investments happening here. Just a tremendous amount of entrepreneurship occurring here in Lakewood. We now have over 5,000 businesses in Lakewood employing almost 35,000 people. So we are becoming a bit of an economic engine here in the South Puget Sound area. I will also say that, looking at the glass half full as opposed to half empty, I do firmly believe that cities of our size, medium-sized cities, are going to benefit the most from, the post-COVID, whatever that looks like. And the reason that I say that is because I think economically and culturally, people are going to be staying closer to home. And I think the days of everybody doing the long commute to the major metropolitan areas are over. And this, whether it's remote work or businesses moving out into where their employees are, I think is a wave of the future. And I believe that that's what's going to happen. And I think we're already beginning to see some of that as it relates to our tax revenue, as well as the economic disruption caused by, people are ordering online and Amazon and things along those lines. And while there are some areas that are losing, primarily the major metropolitan areas, the real winners are communities like Lakewood in our size, medium size and smaller size cities. So I think that's a bit of a positive as we look out. Also, we're focusing economic development. It's happening throughout the whole city. It's not just happening in one area. There is a draw for investment everywhere, whether it's in our town center or in our international district, wherever it is. It's happening throughout the city. And again, the numbers speak for themselves on that. During the pandemic, as a follow-up to the development of our downtown sub-area plan, we which is about 315 acres. We initiated the development of what we call the Lakewood Station sub-area plan, which is really centered on the Sounder Station in St. Clair Hospital. You can see it down here in the lower right-hand corner of the map there. It's about 300 acres, and it's focused on being, transit-oriented development. What we envision there is a high-quality, pedestrian-oriented urban environment. Matter of fact, there's been some land assembly going on down there, and there's already interest in doing some tremendous reinvestment in some development down in that area to the tune of hundreds of affordable units of new housing and even some mixed use. And again, that's all because of, the city's leadership and setting the plate for people to be able to come in and do economic development and having a clear understanding of what the rules are. And again, having this in place has been fantastic. Also a part of that is Lakewood Landing. So Lakewood Landing, if you're all familiar, is right up on I-5. It's, the center part of it is where the original Costco building was back in the day. And it's about 25 acres. It's, it starts about where on the southern part of it is, the washed off property where the rail trestle is, moving north to about, where the lumber yard is, about 25 acres there of underutilized, underdeveloped commercial property, right at the location of where two state highways come together. The first phase is actually moving forward. The first phase is owned by essentially Diamond, which owns where the old Costco building used to be. So they're moving forward with potentially redeveloping that 9.5 acres into a 600 to 700 housing unit mixed use development with about 80 or 90,000 square feet of commercial space. That would be, it's estimated to be about a $270 million investment. That's just the first phase. To put that in perspective, if and when this comes forward, actually when it comes forward, it will be the largest investment ever in the city of Lakewood. It'll be larger than when the new mall was built, when the town center was built, $270 million. And again, that's just the first phase. So again, a lot happening here in the city from an economic development standpoint. And these are just some of the examples. Amazon is coming to town. Aero Precision relocated from downtown Tacoma, bringing 400 current jobs, going to be bringing 400 more jobs for a total of 800 over to the Lakewood Industrial Park. So again, just a lot of great things happening. On the transportation side, over the last 6 years, we have built 59 transportation projects valued at $73 million. And just recently we completed really a couple of transformational projects. Onyx Drive in the Oak Brook neighborhood, and then Veterans Drive down in Lake City. Huge projects. Onyx Drive being over 1.5 miles and Veterans Drive being 1 2/3 miles. These are huge projects, again, transformational for those communities. And our work is still not done. In the current biennium, we have another 11 projects valued at $24.5 million. This year, we have 6 major projects. Actually, 4 of them are already completed. So the Silicon Boulevard Custer to Weller gets underway later this year and into early next year. And then the JBLM North Access Road Improvement Project, which is actually a 2-phase project totaling 3.5 miles. Phase 1 is currently under construction right now. And that's 1.5 miles. It's Gravelly Lake Drive from Nyanza all the way up to Washington Boulevard and then over to Interlochen. That is expected to be completed next October or next November. So that's a $7.5 million project. Again, huge projects what our Public Works Engineering Department is taking on. And again, transformational for these neighborhoods and for our community as a whole. We also have a number of storm drainage and sewer projects. Also, as it relates to our environment and protecting and preserving that, we have been working with our neighbors on American Lake to eradicate the milfoil, and we've just about gotten all of it. That's going to be an ongoing effort, but that's certainly a huge success. Likewise, over at Wahop Lake, the alum treatment of the lake has worked out very, very well if you've been down there, and so that work will continue as well. On the park side, not to be undone, over the last 6 years, about 30 plus projects valued at $12 million. Again, transformational. And you can see some of the huge successes we've had just in the last few months. The area down at Fort Steilacoom Park, the bathroom area, that Central Plaza area, that's one of the areas that we're working with the Nisqually tribe about perhaps incorporating some of their history into the park to celebrate their legacy here in Lakewood. And then, of course, we had the grand opening of Harry Todd Park just a few months ago. And I certainly remember in 1985 when I first came out here, what Harry Todd Park was then and what it is today. And it's just an absolute jewel. And I want to congratulate Ms. Dodsworth and her team and all of the work that all of you folks have done in making that come to fruition, because my goodness, what a significant change. But we're not done. Springbrook Park, we got some additional improvements and some expansion, as well as some work down in Clover Creek that's going to get underway here in the near term, as well as turf infields over at Fort Steilacoom Park, to include a partnership with Pierce College, as well as, of course, huge improvements at American Lake Park and Ward's Lake Park, which will get underway in 2022 and hopefully begin to turn dirt sometime in 2022 on those projects as well, if not 2023. But again, just a lot just transformational, just absolutely fantastic. On the public safety side, going back to incorporation, public safety has always been about, connecting to the community. And certainly that's something that the city does. And you can see some of the examples of some of our key programs that continue to move forward and continue to benefit the Lakewood community as a whole. I will point out that our police department, we were the first police department to have dash cameras in all of our police vehicles. And we are now in the process of implementing body cameras. And if we can get that done sometime in the near future, we'll actually be the first agency in Pierce County with both body cameras and in-car dash video systems. The challenge that we're dealing right now is just the supply chain issue of being able to get the cameras. We were supposed to have them in earlier this month, as a matter of fact, but the supply chain is having an impact there. So hopefully, knock on wood, here in the near future, we'll be getting those cameras and we'll be able to implement them. At the same time, crime continues to decrease in Lakewood. Matter of fact, the latest numbers through third quarter of this year is that crime is down by another 5%. Again, that doesn't happen by accident. I often say that the second best thing that this community did after incorporating as a city was forming its own police department. And I think LPD on a day in and day out basis does a fantastic job that allows us to do all the other great things in the community that the community wants us to do, whether it's economic development and at building sidewalks and parks. You first have to have a safe community, and LPD does that day in and day out. A couple of concerns though with COVID. We are seeing increase, actually couple COVID and some of the recent legislative changes, and I'm just stating the facts here. We are seeing some, I guess I would best describe as maybe some unintended consequences because of changes in law. Officers are no longer allowed to chase after, folks that elude from them on traffic stops unless it's really specific to either a DV or a felony. So when we spot a stolen vehicle, for example, and they speed off, we can't chase after them. So we have seen a huge increase in eluding. Also robberies, where people are using a weapon. We have seen a significant increase there as well. And then domestic violence, we have seen an increase in DV. Though in many other areas, particularly aggravated assaults and things along those lines, we have seen a decrease. So overall crime is down, but again, we do have some concerns in some areas, and we're working on how to try and figure out that. Also auto thefts. One of the challenges that we face with auto thefts is that the jails, particularly the Pierce County Jail, they're only taking, certain felonies. And what's happening is you have a handful of people that are out there stealing cars day in and day out, and they get caught, but then we have to cite and release, and then they get back to it. So that's really what's driving it. It's really a handful of individuals that are doing that. So hopefully once the jails are back open, there'll be an increase in accountability on that front. Some upcoming projects. Again, these are just some examples of some of the things that we're working on. We continue to talk with the library about bringing 2 new libraries to Lakewood, one in Tillicum and replacing the one in our downtown area. Unfortunately, we had a pause on that because of the pandemic, but we're getting back up into it. Also DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. We just hired a DEI manager, and the purpose first and foremost is for the city as an organization to look at how we do business, whether it's recruiting or our public policies and things along those lines. And so, and that's not something new. We have had a DEI initiative. We've had an equity team for several years. However, we were at a point where we needed some additional help really to move to the next phase and the next step. And so that's where we are on that. And then of course, just our continued partnerships that we have both internal and external to our community, including of course, JBLM. During the pandemic, we kicked off what I would call an imaging campaign. It's not a branding campaign, an imaging campaign, literally right when the pandemic hit. So we thought this was going to be a bust. Actually, it turned out to be one of the best things that we did, because people then, I don't know, people had time to kind of learn about different communities. And this, we attribute this, because we're hearing from folks, as why people are interested in Lakewood and investing in Lakewood. And that's why you see that $160 million. We thought at first it was gonna be a bit of a downer, but it actually turned out to be quite positive. And we've created some videos again to try and showcase who and what we are. And they are getting very positive responses outside of the Lakewood community in terms of, us shaping the message, who and what we are. And then lastly, I think you're all aware, here's how to stay connected with our community. So I think I went a little bit longer than I wanted to, so I appreciate your patience, but if there's any questions, I can certainly try and answer those.
Thank you, City Manager Richard Caulfield. I just want to say thank you for your service and what you're doing for your community. Appreciate it. One thing that I just want to, it is the staff, and during COVID, it's taken a big toll on staff. And so I think anything that we can do to help and support our staff is much appreciated. But thanks to you and the council for working so well together and making Lakewood a place we all love to live.
Thank you.
John, will you share that PowerPoint with the Parks Board for us?
Yes.
Like most things, the more you know, it generates more questions. I see some objects in it, like, park equipment replacement, 20 grand. Well, I bought a tractor, it was 27,000. So it'll generate a couple of questions. I think it's also good to share with some other members of the public. And I know you've been to a number of clubs to present this, and it's really very inclusive of everything that's happening in Lakewood. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Actually, I just made some minor updates to this, because the last time it was updated was a couple of months ago, but it is posted on our website. So once we have this current version updated on our website, I'll make sure that the link gets sent out to you.
Super. I'll take a look at it. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions for our city manager? Doesn't seem like it. Thank you, City Manager Caulfield. We appreciate it.
John's good. John's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Caulfield. We're very lucky that we have a city manager that supports parks as
Mary, we've talked about this.
Oh yeah, no, he hates parks.
Yes.
Not supportive of parks. No, he really is. He's always on our team. He's always got our back. He's always thinking even a couple steps ahead of us sometimes to make sure that we're aware or in the loop or thinking about things. So we're really grateful, and it shows. You can see the changes that we've made, and of course there's been a lot of work that's gone into that, but it wouldn't have happened without your support. And of course, it's board, it's enthusiasm, but it comes from the top. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that, Mary. But one of the things I learned is, you stay out of the way of people like Mary, and great things happen.
For sure.
Okay.
Awesome. So it looks like next on our agenda is city facility naming process and review.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. And did we lose Vito?
At some point he fell off. I'm not quite sure what happened there.
Anyway, so as you know, at our last meeting, we held the public hearing. We did the review of the process. And so I thought it went really, really well for what we, for our first time. We were kind of the guinea pigs. This was sort of the guinea pig process. So I was able to brief council the week following or 2 weeks following. It wasn't sending a formal recommendation, but it was just to brief them on the process and what kind of had happened through there. And they had some good conversations regarding that. And so, you know, we always learn. Every time we do this, we learn. And so what we wanted to do was to, I wanted to give you sort of an update on sort of what some of their comments and thoughts were, and then also just get feedback from you folks being in the hot seat, so to speak, on just the process and application and materials and information, and maybe some of the things that you thought of, you know, afterwards, like, oh, wouldn't it have been great if we did this? Oh, I'm really uncomfortable that we did that, or just all the, you know, just have a conversation about it. So do you want to start with where you guys can just give some feedback on what you thought, or you want to hear a little bit about what council had to say about it, just from their perspective? Where do you want me to go with that, Chair?
I think hearing where council's at, then if there's anything to add that people can add from there, I think makes sense to me, Mary.
Okay,
If that's okay with the group.
that sounds good. That's what I'll do. So, so I was able to share the process with them and what the outcome was, and then you saw in your minutes, which you approved. So now you've made your official, you know, recommendation that you approve that. So I wanted to find out from you folks. I'll just kind of go through my list and then I'll go back to it. So one, you can just do it with. Regarding the application, did you feel like the application was clear and easy to review? And was there anything from that application that was missing? I guess I'm just going to go through my list and so we'll catch council stuff. Perfect.
Yeah.
So what about, did you believe that the application that you received was clear and easy to review? And was there anything missing? Okay.
Yeah, and to me, it provided, you know, the sample. Unfortunately, I had a miss and wasn't part of the process. But as far as me reviewing it, I felt like it gave me the background of what we were going to be, you know, going to have the hearing on and discussing. So
Good. And then we also, with the application, we included a staff report. And so how I summarized, I went through the different criteria that was really relevant, that was from the resolution. And then I kind of responded to each item based on, you know, research or what we found. Was that helpful and supportive? And again, was there anything that you felt you needed that you didn't get during that process?
seeing a
The
lot
whole
of head.
process was good.
Okay.
You
good.
know, it allows for filters before it goes to a certain level, and then the next level, some more filters. I think it's appropriate.
Okay, that's good. Going to filters, I think you're probably referring to some of the public input. So we actually, when we announced, it was kind of odd. When you do a public hearing, you typically do a public hearing and you gather information at the beginning of the public hearing and you close the public hearing. So we had public input. We did an announcement in the subtimes. That was really important to this group, that there was public input so that we could learn what people thought about whatever the application was. So there was a lot of feedback in the subtimes. We had it posted on our website. We received several emails and there was a poll in subtimes, which was an informal poll, but we still got feedback from them on that. And really, we included all of that in the public record. We sent you as much information as we had before the Friday when the packet went out, Thursday or Friday, and then we gave you the additional information in advance of the meeting. And, you know, it was really quite clear regarding this topic, but in the future, there could be other bits and pieces. Was that, you know, summary of emails and all that material good for you? Hi, Mom. Or was there another way you wanted to receive that information? Did you want to receive that information in advance that way? Or did you just want to hear about it at the public hearing?
Oh, I think having that that's beautiful, Mary. You know, I think it's kind of essential because you guys are getting it straight. And I think Alan kind of refers to it as a filter, but you kind of gave us the Reader's Digest version of it, and it gave us good context. And to me, it was a thorough, fair outline and encapsulated, you know, everything that you guys had kind of heard. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of necessary for the process for us to review it.
And because we were actually making an official recommendation to council, and we hadn't done this before, we did do a public hearing. And first of all, our city clerk, thank her, she laid out a really good script and plan so that we did it properly, because there are requirements for a public hearing, even though we're not taking, oh, there's Vito. Good job. I'm glad you're back, Vito. We did the public hearing and Vito just did a fantastic job. Jason, he
Right.
handled the meeting really, really well, went through the information in a really straightforward manner. And I thought he just did such a great job with the public meeting. Vito, you did a great job. And in advance, I think because we had done all that public input gathering, we really only had 2 people that made public comment in the public hearing, and there was nobody there, and that could have been a COVID thing. But I thought that he did a really, really good job. So I'm just not sure what else you could add to that, because I thought that it went super smoothly. Now, could we have had 50 people in the room? Could we have had a variety of opinions or, things like that? So, but we didn't, and I thought it went really, really well. So I was just going to get some feedback if there's any other thoughts you had regarding the public hearing.
Process was perfect, really. It came to us after it had passed all the criteria to get to this point.
Okay.
It happened to be a simple one, like you say, because it was way weighted in one direction than the other. But I think the system will facilitate a more decisive and controversial decision if it comes up in the future.
And then here's some feedback from the council and things that we might want to consider, and then it might trigger some ideas for you too. Is one of the things that actually, one of the comments that came from one of the people at the public hearings, they talked about what's the cost to make this kind of a change. And that might be some criteria. So what we're looking at, the council wants us to go back and look at the resolution and maybe and the administrative process and maybe make some suggestions for changes. And I thought that was a really good thing to consider, or criteria to include, is what is the cost for making a change to a site? Could be a road, could be a building, could be something else. So I thought that that might be, whether it's signage or whatever. I thought that that was a good actual question. And again, at a public hearing, you're not answering questions, you're gathering feedback, but I thought that was good. That might be something that we want to do, add to the criteria to be considered as an item. So
This day and age, I think, you've got to factor in cost when you're making these decisions and setting your priorities. So I thought that was fantastic when I read that.
right, and maybe cost for change and impact to others, because if say it was a road, say it was something like Main Street here, if we were to change the address, how many businesses or other people would have to change their address too? I mean, that's a big impact.
Yeah.
And it's happened before in the universe, so maybe kind of what are those thoughts? The other thing is to clarify, it wasn't in our I think administrative process, but to make sure that you guys requested this, is to clarify that the applicant presents the proposal to the board. That was really, and I thought Mr. Boyd did a very good job. I thought he really laid out his position. He was aware of the situation and the popularity or lack thereof, and I thought he did a really good job. But I thought that, we want to add that to the administrative process, just because I thought that was important, and it was important to you too in the past. There was a board member that abstained from voting. We might want to talk about that or provide some training in advance, like what's allowable, what are the reasons for that, and how that goes about. Does that need to be stated at the beginning or at the end? So I think we'll just want to formalize that a little bit. And that might just be training for us, because we don't, take votes like that very often. But there are specific criteria as to why you may or may not do that. And so we might want to provide some training on that. That we'll find out on that. And then also, this was something that came from the mayor and council, is that should we have some type of threshold to show broad community support before an application is even submitted or as part of it? The reason for that is that this was new to a lot of people. They thought that the city was promoting this, and then we kept going back and forth saying, no, this was a citizen, and they're like, a citizen? Anybody can put in an application? I mean, you guys could be doing these applications, 12 of them a month. So the thing that the council said is that maybe there should be some type of threshold to show broad community support. That could be a petition, it could be signatures, a percentage of population or voters, a poll. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts regarding that? Do you think just anybody should be able to submit an application, or do you think there needs to be some kind of reference point beforehand?
I think it's a good idea to have like a petition. I think that's great. It shows more community support or a direction to go to. I apologize. My computer decided to quit. I had to log back on.
No worries, Vito. And so, go ahead.
If we do that, though, we have to set some kind of a threshold. We can't,
Right.
you 25 people sign up, or, I'm not sure I'm not sure I'm opposed to individuals doing it, but
Well, I mean, sometimes it only takes one person in a community to have a great idea that could make a major change. And so on a certain level, you don't want to stifle that. What I think I initially grapple with is yeah, what's your measuring stick for when it's got that community support? And right now, today in today's day and age, it's going to be, is it the number of likes on Facebook or Instagram or something like that? Where back in the day it would have been newspaper and that sort of thing. And so that I think knowing that it has support, it gives it more merit, and I'm open to that discussion, but I don't know how you measure it right now. And so that's my reluctance. But I think that, yeah, I don't want to say frivolous, but that's the word that comes to mind right now, to just be entertaining a bunch of these just as some individual whims. I don't want to go down that route either. So it's, where do we find that balance, and what's reasonable, are the things that come to mind. So I guess I need to put a little more thought to that one, Mary.
well, I think the filtering that Alan was talking about with the system that we currently have, I mean, that seemed to work out. But I agree with you, Jason. With social media the way it is, I can go online and get 150 people to thumbs up on something, and that's it's worthless.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say go down the road a little bit. And if it becomes a clerical nightmare for you because you're getting one a week, that might be an opportunity to revisit and ask for a petition system of X number of names. Or you're kind of working on a problem that may or may not exist if you
Right.
put it in the front.
Right. And providing some public information, people were really upset. You could hear it. People were respectful of Claudia, which I was very thankful, but people were really upset, thinking, why would the city do this? Why are you doing this? The history. We have been working really long and hard with our relationship with the Nisqually tribe, and they were shocked. They thought that the city was pushing this through. So it really created a lot of conversation, which is good, because it gave us the ability to have this conversation. But you're right, it could or could not be. It was just something that the council had suggested because they didn't know what the next steps were going to be, so okay, that's good feedback. And we'll do a little more research on that too, to see what that might be. But we certainly did hear from a lot of folks. We did get a lot of good public input to help us make that decision. So clearly outline the next steps. So that was something, we kind of had this great process. I thought it went really well. I thought it was a good review. And then it was kind of like, now what do we do? So we didn't really have a process that talked about, now that you've made your formal recommendation, do I send a letter right after the meeting? Do we wait till you've approved your minutes? Because that makes it official because you've approved your minutes. So we just probably need to clarify that. Do you guys have a thought regarding that? Would you like to see a little bit of time pass and have it wait till the next minutes are approved before it gets forwarded officially to council? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Do we gain anything by waiting that time? Is that going to change the decision? Or, I mean, you formalize the decision, so I understand that, but generally we've got a pretty agreeable, advisory board here. And so I guess there could be a situation where, it comes back and after people have slept on it, that was the wrong decision and want to reverse action. I don't know. I'm struggling to know what the right thing to do is there.
I don't think there's any reason to do that. Once we've decided and we've thought through it and we've discussed it, go with it.
Yeah.
I guess my only thought would be is that the wording in your minutes is official when it's done. And so I think we would just want to, as the chair, or Vito as the vice chair sitting in, is just really making sure that we're clear that the recommendation that we've taken down is the recommendation that you want to provide.
Right.
So that would be my only thing, is just to make sure that we were breaking it down. And the other thing we could do too is finalize it by sending it out to you as a board to review prior to going to council. And then that way, then there could be, not as a group, because we don't do that as a meeting, but individually you could send a note, and then that could provide some just, oh, yep, good, exactly what we heard, yep, good. And then that way it would be included in the minutes that way too.
Haven't we in the past, Mary, you've summarized or put together a summary of what we've decided, and then we either concur or make recommendations, but most of us concur with your summary.
Mhm.
What you sent out was good. That went on to the city manager or the council?
It did, yeah. I sent that to the city manager and the council. He wanted a briefing of how it went. And so then I happened to be doing a presentation, it must have been the next week or soon thereafter, that night. And so it was reports by the city manager. So he just had me follow up after my presentation with a summary of it. So yeah, so it wasn't, I haven't forwarded your formal recommendation yet, because again, I wanted to come back to the group and just make sure we're on task and just, and then they had all this feedback. So I was just following up with you on that.
Okay.
But
And I
that's-
think, I think if, you know, if there was something where, you know, it was misrepresented or it got mistyped in the minutes, I think, you know, I feel like you're going to forward, you know, what the intent of the board's decision was, and that if it came to the minutes, we're just going to say, hey, we just as a, you know, we need to make that correction so it reads properly. It still doesn't change the fact of what the intent was and moving it forward in the process.
Okay. Okay, and then here's the other thing. What if council doesn't like the recommendation that the park board made? This was their question. Can they table the issue without bringing it, you know, to a vote? Or does it need a formal approval or not approval? Can we suggest something else? Like, can the council then say, oh, they want to name City Hall, but we'd rather name, you know, Wards Lake Park or something like that? If there's a new suggestion, does it need to come back to the park board for public input, or to city council staff to facilitate the next steps? Like, your recommendation will go forward that says the park board would be recommending doing a recognition of Claudia Thomas by naming City Hall or a portion of City Hall. And so we'll forward that to council and they say, hate it. Don't want to do that idea. We'd rather name the plaza, or we want to name Wards Lake Park. So does it then come back to the park board to then do public input again? Because now it's something different than really what you gathered public input on. What are your thoughts on that?
I think at that point, we need to meet face to face and talk about it.
As the
Yeah,
board,
that's return to sender.
Yeah,
No, I think once they've made a determination on our recommendation, that should be it.
Yeah.
I don't know why we would continue with the process that they've already made a decision on.
well, if they decided that we set their recommendation forward, and then because we really did the review on Fort Shelton Park, and then based on conversations, and his application did talk about City Hall, and that came up during the meeting. But we really didn't get a lot of public input on City Hall, but just, you're saying give it to City Council and let them work on it.
Well, my thought on it is, you know, we work at council's direction, and we are just an advisory board, and at any point they can make the decision that they need to make. That's how our political process works in Lakewood, and I accept that process. The thing that I think would deserve some consideration is that this board has a history and a track record of working and taking on some of the more challenging topics that have faced our community. And when a board has that kind of dedication and level of service to the community, you would like to see it become a conversation at that point. And to me, we've made our recommendation. If they want to go with something else, to me, it would be a form of courtesy where the council says, well, we have a recommendation and we have a difference of opinion. Let's come together as a board, like a joint meeting, just like we do annually, or we've had tri-board meetings with you know, others, that you sit down in that sort of forum and you hash it out as a community together and kind of try to land at that final decision. But again, the process is that they can overrule us at any time, and we've got to accept that. And I do accept that. But like I say, I also I feel vested in this community and this board, and you know, some consideration that way would not be unwelcome, I guess is a good way to put it.
I agree with that, Jason. We're an advisory board and they can go in another direction, but having an opportunity to have some open discussion. At Metro, we would have committee of the whole where we would ask for additional information and discussion, and the board would discuss some of these topics that were a little controversial. But they wouldn't make any movement. They wouldn't have a resolution that night. They would move maybe the next board meeting for a resolution. And that gives some opportunity for some open dialogue.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mary made it perfectly clear the last meeting that we are the responsible organization to make offers on changing names or whatever. So if, let's just say that we go forward and say, listen, we want to name Fort Steilacoom Park this. And they get together and I say, no, we don't like that. We want to name it this. Okay. Well, that has to come back through the process, right? And we have to get, you know, input from the community and all that stuff, right? So that just triggers the whole thing all over again, right?
On a certain level, I think if it's not part of the initial application or proposal, then yeah, you would want to see that gets reviewed. But whether they're voting on it or it's a little twist of what our recommendation is, that's where the courtesy. But yeah, I think if it's like a wholesale change, to me, it's different than the application that we are being asked to review. And so to me, it makes sense, Michael. I think we might need to get a little clarification to make sure that is truly, you know, the way it would go.
Yeah, it's a little foggy at the end of the process as to what the next steps are. So that's why I'm kind of clarifying this so that we can provide that feedback and that response from you regarding, you know, if they want to, if they're not accepting of the recommendation or they want to make a different recommendation, either they then need to send it back to Park Board for re-review or public input, or have a conversation maybe regarding next steps. So, and then do we want to include, or is there any other thoughts on that? I think you're all kind of saying about the same thing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And then is there an appeal process? Do we want to say that there's any kind of appeal process, or just the council makes the decision at the end?
Mary, can I ask a question about the process? So if the city council wants to rename Fort Steilacoom Park, they would present a resolution. Would it have 2 readings, 1 reading, and would there be public comment?
The policy is, this is the process for renaming the city facility. So if the council had a big idea, say regardless of this, say they came in a month from now and decided, we want to rename Wards Lake Park, the Vito Jacobazzi, you know, area. They would do an application just like ours. They have the ability to create an application or have us work on an application. But there is a process for renaming facilities. They can't, I mean, city council has at their pleasure to do what they want, but they do have a resolution, which isn't a law, but it is, you know, a recommendation on how you facilitate that. And then there's a process in which that would work. So they can come up with something, they can change something, but this is the process that they should follow. We're just clarifying is if we want to say in the process that we do the public hearing and make a decision that night, or we could, Vito, as you said, have a public hearing, have the conversation, and then come back at the next meeting to take action. That could also be part of it. It does give a chance for conversation and review and see if anything else pops up. I'm just laying that out now because it just sort of stopped. We had the public meeting and the park would make a recommendation. So I'm just trying to kind of clean up those edges so that there's consistency. Because I think that was part of why we created this in the first place, and why you know, I created a staff report a certain way that I could utilize as a model for future review of whatever comes our way, just so that there's consistency. That's kind of what we're going for. So what are your thoughts on having that, you know, like you would be taking action tonight, maybe through your minutes or through a formal letter that maybe everybody signs? What are your thoughts about doing it the night of the public hearing or waiting? You know, council typically has a study session 1 week, and they don't take action until the next meeting. So, so they often do that process as well.
Thank
just
you.
because they have that, so.
I think it makes sense to wait till the next meeting to turn it in. I mean, this is not a rapid process. It involves a lot of things. Ultimately, when you talk about sign changing and all of that too.
Right,
So, it's not a speed event.
right,
And I think if there's a lot of deviation from our recommendation when it goes to the city council, it should just bounce back down another step. And that eliminates the appeal process too, because once the decision's made by the city, there's no appeal, yes or no.
right,
Refile, start from the beginning again if you want in a year, but
right.
this isn't Supreme Court. We want to take it forever. We want to be done with these projects.
Got it.
Yeah, I concur with Alan.
Yeah, council makes the final decision. Okay, good. Well, those are my thoughts. Again, I thank you all for being such good sports and helping get this facilitated. I thought it went really well. I thought we were really did it in a respectful manner, whether you agreed or didn't agree. I thought it went really well. And again, Vito, thank you for taking that lead. I thought you did a really nice job with the process and facilitating that public hearing. So.
Yeah, and I want to apologize for not being there, and also thank you to Vito for representing us so well.
Mary, I do have a question. At what point in the process do we make a determination on the cost of making changes? Is that something that's going to happen after city council says, oh yeah, we like your idea, now we'll figure out how much it's going to cost? I don't think so.
Yeah, so what I was proposing was when we do the staff report, that, I didn't really talk about what the cost of change could be, or maybe what some of the elements might be, because it's going to vary based on what the suggestion is. Creating one new sign or a plaque is different than, changing everybody's address on a road. So we would add that in the staff report as just information for you. And then when it would go forward to council, they would get that staff report, and then they would have to consider, do they wait till they raise enough money to do that? Do they just allocate resources to do that? Do we look for that broad community support by having whoever suggested it maybe help support that? So that would be a later conversation. The budget part really isn't your issue. Your issue is the recommendation of yes or no.
And I think for the park board's review, Mary, on some of these, you may not be able to come up with a dollar figure in the time of the process. And so you're going to be, if you can just indication it's going to be minimal, or this is going to be a big impact financially. I mean, it gives us context. And I think in a lot of cases, that's more than adequate.
I think another key element is the timing. How long is it going to take to rename? Like you mentioned, Mary, earlier, if you rename a street, it's going to involve several layers of folks. So I think a timing element is also very important to add to this, whatever we're putting forward.
Right.
Yeah, good thought, Vito.
Well, it's funny too, and I think Mr. Lackady brought this up after the meeting too. He goes, you could change the name of something, and does that, are people going to actually start using that? That's part of that time frame. Or so I still say the Villa Plaza every so often, right? And I've been around a long time, and it's not that I don't know it's the town center, and it's not that I don't remember it used to be the Lakewood Mall, but Villa Plaza reminds me of my grandma, so I think about it. So and you kind of use it as a point of reference. So and it's going to vary based on what we're changing. Right. So,
right.
But there's people that are new to the community. They wouldn't know that used to be the Villa. Like, what are you talking about? So.
Yep. Awesome. Anything else on the facility naming process?
Good.
All right. We're going to roll on to a South Sound Wildlife Area update. And I'm guessing this is going to come from Alan.
Would be correct.
Alan, you're doing great work. Thank you.
We'll be fast because we all want to hear Mary. Shared screen, are we there?
Not yet. Now we're there.
There, we're there. All right. Okay, so we're just going to go really quick because we all want to hear what Mary has to say too. I'm just going to show you a few pictures of before and after, how the project's going out there, and just talk very briefly about the kind of broad support we're starting to show out here. Here's the area when we started 2 years ago. This was the old educational area. There it is today. The indigenous gardens starting to take shape. The parking lot's clean. Here's the benches people used to sit on when they'd walk out there. And here's what they get today now when they go out to enjoy this area. This is what the trail looked like when we started the project 2 years ago. And there it is today, well used, well maintained. We've got this summer, this is the new stuff. We've got an Eagle Scout project in the turtle ponds where the Western pond turtle's being studied. They have to have a boardwalk because it's a wet, marshy area. In one section where the ponds join each other, it's about an 8-foot deep trench that they have to walk over. And so we had an Eagle Scout put in footings, build a bridge with a handrail so that they can study these guys in the fall and the spring when they really need to without risking the boardwalk and falling in. This summer we had Northwest Youth Corps out there. They were joined one day by a group of volunteers from REI who came out and helped them work for a few days. They funded part of the Youth Corps experience for a couple of sites this year. So they wanted to come out and work. And they said, well, that's a good place for us to work. We're particularly against invasive species. And boy, do we have some invasive species for them to work on. So one of the projects they did out there was to continue the boardwalk and replace it that's around the endangered species ponds so that the team can get in and out of there during the mating and the egg laying time and do census counts. The females actually have transmitters, so they're easy to keep track of, but the other turtles, they physically go and count and watch their behavior. So now they can get in and out of there regardless of the weather. In the winter, all that grass is covered up by about a foot of water. So this boardwalk's barely above the water level. They pulled, of course, a good old Scotch broom, and thanks to our parks, once again, for lending us those 6 pullers. We had about 8 total, and they pulled tons and tons of Scotch broom out. We're actually starting to make some headway out there, and it's really apparent when you look at the big scenes. Cleaned up our fence line again there. These are all high school kids. Many of them are strangers to work when they start with Northwest Youth Corps, and this is their opportunity to really learn what it's like to be outside, to work every day. We had a community work party October 2nd this year that involved Lions Club, Kiwanis, 2 Rotaries, a lot of community members, kids from Pierce College, Steilacoom High School, and Lakes High School. There's even our Ron Banner, our superintendent there, lending a hand. Had a good turnout. Had about 60 community members come out for that day to work. It was fortunately nice weather. Here's some of the students, and you notice they've got their weapons of choice out there for destruction of those Scotch broom plants. And here's somebody you might recognize showed up, one of our Parks Board families out there working and getting rid of some new graffiti that showed up. We haven't had this kind of problem in the past, but it's gone now. Kids picked up a bunch of garbage. And there's the beginning of their pile of Scotch broom. You can look out in the distance and you see those big square areas in the middle where we're starting to actually make some headway. You look in the far background, you can see it's nothing but Scotch broom. So that's pulling, that's me out there mowing. It's a little bit of spraying, working to get rid of those guys because they have literally taken over the entire prairie out there, and we're finally starting to get them under control. The last benches went in on this work party. There's Daley O'Keefe showed up to work. He said, hey, all I want to do is drive your tractor, Alan. So he shuffled Scotch broom back and forth all day. So there's a bunch of the youth there, and one of the dump truck loads full of Scotch broom they killed out in the area they're working. And you can look off in the distance, kind of on the right-hand side, you can see the Gary Oak savanna that's been replanted, and it's completely clear of Scotch broom now. 2 of those are cleared. So we've made some really good headway out there this summer, and we would like to continue.
Great.
Yeah, looks fantastic, Alan.
Really good work.
Alan, where are you taking the Scotch broom when you're done with it? Where do you dump it?
We have a spot out there that's designated. We've dumped all this stuff, and it's not that big an area. and it piles up on top of each on itself. And if it ever shows up, we can burn that one little patch. But so far, we're doing pretty well.
You can do it on site. That's great. And we are hoping to utilize that Northwest Youth Corps and really focus on Lakewood kids. And we're working really hard with them. And what we'd like to do is partner with this project as well as other projects throughout the year. We have some ARPA money to do that. So that might be a way we can work together, Alan, to.
I think it's great, you know, and it's good for the youth. It literally, they kind of have to watch them the whole time they're out there working. So I spend most of the time out there dumping the truck and keeping them going. But it's a good learning experience. It's a lot of bang for your buck on labor hours to get things done, and kids are learning stuff. I mean, it's kind of like a three-way win process. So we really like it. We're going to try and put them together every year we can.
Yeah, so we'll come and bring some of that information next year forward when we coordinate it, because we're looking at working directly with them, but having it be Lakewood kids doing stuff in Lakewood, not just, you know, on your project, but in the parks, and maybe working with some of our nonprofits to really give them that opportunity, learning to give back as well as, you know, how to use a weed wrench. So
we got a new bridge down there to Kobayashi. I saw pictures of it today. So we've got all kinds of places to put them. All right, that's enough for now. We want to hear Mary.
Yeah, that's a great report. Thank you, Alan. And we are on to Mary and her director's report.
Okay, let's see if I have it here. I'm going to pull it up too. Not that you want to see my exciting screen. Can you see my screen? It says director's report?
Yep.
Yep.
I never know really what I'm looking at here. Okay, so the capital projects haven't changed a lot this year. You know, we did a pretty detailed overview in June, but we are working on the Springbrook Park project expansion, and we're doing our pre-permitting meetings and all of that. We initially wanted to get started right after summer, but based on timing and things, we'll probably get started in early 2022. Of course, our goal is to be done by summer. The gateways are done. They have completed them. My understanding is that they've been landscaped, and now we're working on our long-term maintenance agreement. The city will be responsible for all of that maintenance for those gateways that were done out there at JBLM on the washtop project at Berkeley and Woodbrook. As Alan mentioned, the noon today, they dropped that bridge across. They would drop the bridge across Chambers Creek Trail, so you can now, and I'm not sure what the time frame is, so you might not actually be able to walk on it yet, but you can get now from Phillips Road Trailhead across to the Kobayashi Park. So that got put in today, and that project is going to be finalized and get cleaned up by the end of the year. So that's very exciting. That's phase one. Still working on phase two. Phase two, you know, we talked about realignment, left or the south side, the north side, the north and the south side. How many bridges do we need? It was way too expensive, but our city council has allocated additional resources to cover our third to do it the right way. So now we're really just getting the design done and the permitting done, and we're hoping that our grant agencies are going to take pity on us and notice the progress we've made and give us time extensions, because COVID took a big hit, supply chain took a big hit on timing. So we're hoping for that, and we're showing progress, so that's good. Harry Todd, it's all done. Yay, we did our grand opening. Angle Lane's all done. We are still working with the Nisqually tribe on benches, and also, as city manager said, we put together a presentation. I'm going to be talking about 4 different projects that we hope to work with them on, long-term projects. So not just the Angle Lane Plaza area, but the Nisqually Loop Trail, interpretive areas, as well as telling that Chief Leshai story or whatever story they want to tell. So we'll come forward with more information on that. And we do hope to meet with them in November. So that'll probably be something that comes early in the year. It's been a really long process. COVID has taken a hit as well. That's delayed a lot of things, but we're doing our best to work with their artists and keep moving forward. Park signage, we're going to just talk about it next year. We're going to get some experts to come and help us tie it all up with a big red bow. Council wanted to look at some branding and imaging and consistency. So we're just going to come back and talk to you about that another day. Edgewater, I don't even know what's going on with that. We're still working on right away. We already did an RFQ. We're getting people that are interested in, putting together the right team to do Wards Lake Park. Because of the federal money and because of the wetland and because of all the property issues, It's been kind of complicated, but we should hopefully have those 3 parcels on the backside of the theater purchase, boundary line adjustments, and we're getting ready to start doing some more detailed planning. And of course, you will be reviewing that sometime next year when we're ready to bring that forward to you. We have the master plan, but now and then we have to figure out how we actually build it. So that'll be great. Pavilion's done. Sealy Lake, that's sort of in development process still from design. And then Pierce County, there's a few things that we'll do at Sealy Lake. You know, we've done a lot of the cleanup, brush clearing. We'll probably do a little bit of trail work and maybe a little bit of beautification and interpretation on that big culvert that comes right out by the police station. If you've been down there, looks like a place you're gonna get dragged in and kidnapped and locked behind the gate. But then the big improvement you're gonna see is a major parking lot trail access renovation, where we're gonna take out all that hiding down at the bottom, bring the trailhead up to the top, and that'll probably happen in 2023 because Pierce County has some resources they can allocate then, and also they'll take the lead in doing it since it's technically their property. So that's good. We're gonna be busy doing other stuff. We are also in the process of getting ready to do an RFQ. That's a request for qualifications to find the right firm to work with to implement the American Lake Park project. You know, from our master plan, we received the grants to now implementation. So that'll be coming your way next year. The playground's all done at Fort Silicum. And again, we have a lot of resources to do a lot of great things next year. And so we're really excited about that. So we'll give you an update on all of those projects. We have entered into, we amended our ILA, that's an interlocal agreement with Pierce College. So we have worked with them. You know, we did an ILA earlier this year that said, yes, we all agree this is a good idea. City has resources to do the 4 turf infields at Fort Slocum Park. It will make those fields more usable year round and longer so that we can, you know, have tournaments and baseball games that don't get rained out. Even though with global warming, we might not have rain in the summer ever again, but you know, we'll decide that. But it does give us some more flexibility and makes them more marketable for tournaments and things. And then Pierce College is going to take one of those fields and turning into their home field. So they're going to be doing a whole bunch of extra stuff. We each have $1 million and a 1.6 million to put into that. And depending on how much that home field costs, they may put some more resources into that, but we won't know until we do some real design and get some cost estimates for that. But that's very exciting. So we just approved an ILA to actually share the cost of the design, because that was about $270,000. And so we wanted to make sure proportionately how much the city's paying and how much they're paying, and everybody's still on track, and it was a done deal. It's ready to go. So we're excited about that. Many of you came out to Truck and Tractor Day. It was another beautiful day. We had all, at first we didn't really think we were going to have as many trucks and tractors as we've had in the past. And some of the folks that we've had in the past didn't come because of COVID. Their companies either wouldn't let them come or they weren't comfortable coming, but we had a whole bunch of new people that never heard of Truck and Tractor Day. So they're all excited about coming back next year. So, but I have to say the hit of the day was this giant pile of dirt. I went and bought a bunch of Tonka toys and Barbie cars and I don't know what else, you know, little animal cars. And it was the hit of the day. There were kids on that mound all day long playing in the dirt. It was so fun. And so that'll be, you know, that's why are we building playgrounds? We just need to put a big pile of dirt out there and throw out a few Tonka.
Simplest toys are the best.
They are. So that was fun. And then just the last thing, one of the things that I presented to council and I thought I would share with you is that there's a few folks that are coming prior to council meetings and they're talking about saving trees and all kinds of different things. And one of the things they kept telling council is that we're not doing enough for youth. We don't have any youth programs in our community. We're not doing things to support everybody in our community. And so the city council said, well, really, what is happening? And so we did a pretty extensive report to them. And I'm going to show you in a few seconds, just to kind of skid through it. But we do a lot, you know, we have a real collaborative community. I mean, Alan, you've seen that with your work parties. It's, you ask our friends and partners to come and they help each other and we solve each other's problems and we work together for the best of our community. The city has put a lot of resources into youth and families. And so not just the all fun and games and special events and activities, but really supporting our families to have healthy families so that we can have successful, healthy youth, because it takes, you know, a village, so to speak. So not only are we doing fun Parks and Recreation, after school programs, late night programs, but we're also doing things regarding youth mental health, workforce development, access to food. We spend a lot of money supporting our food banks and getting the food out to the children where they need to get it, families, behavioral health, and housing assistance. So we really have taken a lot of our limited resources and put them there. So I'm going to stop sharing this for a second. And I'm just going to pull up this. Where did, oh, right here. Hopefully it pops up. Okay, can you see that now?
Yep.
It's high tech. It's so great when it works. But anyway, so just to kind of, I'm going to scroll through this for you. I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail on each one, but I'm just going to show you that the agencies over here. Oh, you probably can't see my little. I realized you have to do this to see my pointer. Now you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, again, amazed when it works. So the agencies here, just a variety of the types of programs that they're doing. When, you know, the city, it's a city funded or supported. I mean, we should probably put an X on everyone because we really partner with all these people as much as we can. But this is really, if we're giving them money or we are providing facilities or we're really providing some kind of in-kind support. And then this is just some general comments to help provide some, you know, clarification. And we'll send this out to you so that you have it if you're interested. But anyway, so this was just City of Lakewood, all the different things that we're doing besides programming, you know, special events and things throughout the year. And again, this is really looking at it from kind of the 20 to 21. Not everything is happening in full board and some things were delayed because of COVID, but generally these are sort of the standard regular things that are happening. So we got the City of Lakewood doing some stuff. Of course, our partners, the YMCA, they do a lot of things for kids after school and on the weekends. The Clover Park School District, they have their sports leagues, leadership programs, before and after school activities. We have our official cooperative use agreement with them, so we do share facilities. The Boys and Girls Club is, of course, a great partner, communities and schools. And then we have like Youth for Christ. They have a great center in Tillicum. You know, there's not a lot of activity out there, and so they're providing great resources for those community members. And it's really funny, Tillicum and Woodbrook have really been working with the Springbrook community to work together because they can see how the benefit of community engagement works. And so Tillicum has been working with Springbrook and Springbrook has been working with Tillicum. So that's really cool that they're helping each other that way. The library, a great, amazing community resource that we're really lucky that we have an amazing youth team for our Pierce County Library, really focused on Lakewood and Tillicum. They do a great job. Of course, our different sports groups, we've got Pierce County Parks and Recreation, Bricks for Kids and Snapology and Skyhawks. These are groups you may or may not be aware of, but they do camps and special activities, very well organized. Some of them are a little bit expensive, so sometimes they're accessible. This summer, of course, we had a grant to help all kids be able to participate in those programs, and we think that'll happen again next year. But they're doing things, all kinds of STEM activities, that's science and technology, robotics, as well as video design, and just playing with good old Legos and balls, right? So that's fun. We've got a Puget Sound volleyball region volleyball group. They're doing camps and tournaments and things. This is First Baptist Church. They have their youth and community center. They're doing a lot of peer support and mental health support, and then activities for kids. Young Life, Center for Independence, golf, football, cascade orienteering, you know, our youth garden, a lot of food distribution, and then of course St. Leo's and the Nourish. We're doing that in a lot of different ways. Caring for Kids, Diane Formoso, never ending support for kids or underserved kids and kids that really need support. Springbrook Connections has just been amazing for that area. They're super engaged. In fact, we have to keep saying, don't forget to tell us what you're doing so we can help you. And you're doing it at our park, so we need to know what you're doing. So, but they're really engaged in doing all kinds of things for the community. And our park's the only thing in town down there, so that they really rely on it for a base. Again, scouting programs, Asian Pacific Cultural Center's been such a great partner for us. Oasis Youth Center, that's for our LGBTQ and beyond. They really provide amazing support for teenagers. The Korean Women's Association, YWCA, which is our domestic violence shelter and services, provide for that, and they provide family support, and then of course dental care. And then the other thing that council, the city manager suggested I include in this, and it makes such sense, is these parks. Our park improvements are so important to our youth and families because it gives them safe places to go, to play, to gather as a community, to go to special events. And so you can just see in the last few years, some of these big improvements that have been made in our parks. And these are just the last few years showing the support for youth and families. So you can see there's a couple things going on in Lakewood for kids and families. And I'll send that your way, but that was kind of a fun activity to do. Again, reconnecting, touch base with all of our different partners so that we could support them. So
It's an impressive list, Mary. I could imagine at first it's like, oh, I got to put all this together. But then after you put together a list like that and see how long it is and diverse, it's pretty impressive. So kudos. That's fantastic for our community.
when we started in Lakewood, Parks and Recreation, when we kind of started doing it for real, as an incorporated city, one of the things that we realized, we're never going to have the capacity to do everything. We don't have those resources, and there's no reason for us to do that. If you're in an area where you don't have any other options, but we recognize that we'll fill gaps. We don't want to be duplicative unless there's really a need for expansion. It's like, Lakewood Soccer Club, Lakewood still can do comp, they call themselves out. They do a fantastic job. There's no reason for the city of Lakewood to run a soccer program, unless we're going to do like an adult soccer program. They do a great job with the kids. They're well organized. It's like they're serving the need in our community. So we'll take the time that we could do that and do something else. So that's really been our philosophy forever. And then partnering, of course, in any way that we can. So.
But I remember those conversations on my first days in the board when we were trying to decide those things. So it's wow. That's it's cool that still rides to this day. So no, again, great list.
Mm-hmm. And then just as a follow-up, I don't have it up on my screen now because I know we're coming to the end of our night, is that, just we're out doing outreach, we're writing grants. We wrote a cemetery grant to try and replace the fence around the cemetery. We're working with our No Kids Left Behind. We're really looking for people in the community. We're really looking for a strong programmer that can help us with, we have all this outdoor education we want to do, like special events once a month starting next year. And we're really looking for someone that can help us. It would help, we pay them, of course, but to go out and do those partnership programs, bring in, Cascade Orienteering for an orienteering program on a weekend, to work with a whole bunch of different people to pull in like non-motorized water sports, right? We could do canoeing and paddle boarding and, pedal boat riding and different kinds of non-motorized water sports. We've got, nature and art, we could have photography and painting and painting rocks, stained glass, really utilizing the resources. So we've got a lot of big ideas, but we really need some help. We don't have really the staff on a capacity to do that. So we're really looking for someone in the community. So if you have any big ideas about somebody that wants to, work part-time, temporary, seasonally, love to get that person. We're also, because the pavilion's open, we're doing activities in the park, our facility attendants, we need, again, part-time, temporary folks, because it's not a full-time job, but people in the community that we trust, that we can have help supervise these activities so that people can have the greatest event that they can have in the city, but we can make sure that they're following the rules and they're taking good care of our community so that, those places are there for the next group to use. So, so we're always looking for that. So if you've got anybody, retired or, they want to work 10 or 20 hours a week or a month, send them our way. We'll find something for them to do. And then our next meeting is November 23rd. We're going to have Sally do a public art policy and program. That's something we really hope to kick off in a big way next year, but the council, based on capacity and funding, is going to look at really starting it in 2023. But of course, money never stopped us from doing anything. So we're going to get started on that. We've already started with the signal wraps and some murals. And so Sally's going to come talk to you a little bit more about the program and where we want to go with that. We have a new diversity and equity and inclusion person. So when he's just hit the ground running. And so when he's ready, we want to come in and talk about that, how that can support our internal operations as a city, but then also to make sure that we're reaching out and serving all the community. Something with climate change we have coming down the pike is they're doing a big conversation right now about trees and tree canopy, and Vito, you're working with that. And so they want to take it from the comp plan level and bring it down to a local ordinance level. And so they'll be looking at working with us in the future, having representation from us to work with them. And that's going to be really exciting. And then next month, I'll bring forward our 2022 budget. update. You know, we do a 2-year budget. We're in the middle of our first year, getting ready to do our next year's 2022. So there's supplemental stuff happening and ARPA money and grants. So I'll give you an update of what we plan to do next year at our next meeting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's it for now.
You got plenty working, Mary. Kudos. Okay, with the director's report, do we have any board member comments?
No comments.
I'd just make one and apologize for your lack of seeing me the last quarter, it seems like. And it's all been work related, and the demands up in Federal Way have had me at pretty much every committee meeting and council meeting the last quarter. So thanks for your patience with me. And again, thank you, Vito, for keeping us on track.
Does anybody want to see the bridge at Chambers? I have a picture
Yeah.
I do.
here. I'll show you a couple pictures. Can you see that?
Whoa.
Oh,
Isn't that great?
That is great.
wow.
That's they placed the bridge today, and so yeah, I think that's the Phillips Road side, because no, maybe that's the Chamber, that's the UP side.
Okay.
And then let's see if we got another one here. I have 4 of them, but this is just to give you another idea. But yeah, so there you go.
Cool.
Isn't that great?
That is super.
We heard him down there today, cutting a few trees and getting things ready. Yeah. I'll take a walk down there tomorrow and watch it.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun that they're let's see this one. Oh, this
It's amazing how fast they drive up with a truck and a bridge on it, and in no time it's in place. It's impressive. I've been lucky enough to see it a few times.
Right, you know, from an environmental perspective, especially something on a salmon bearing stream such as that, you build it off site and you
Yep.
build it in pieces, but you take away all of that environmental impact of doing that. So they build it in a factory or a warehouse and they get it done.
Yep.
It was supposed to be in place in July, but based on they couldn't get decking material, it was a delay in that supply chain, which we've been seeing in a lot of different things. So yeah, there you go. There's your new bridge. Kind of exciting.
Yeah, super exciting. Awesome. Any other board member comments? I hear Sylvia, you were on mute, so we didn't hear what you had said.
I'm sorry. They had to spend a lot of time building the road from the UP side down to get there. And we heard all of that going on. And then today we heard a lot of trees being cut. And we figured there was something big going on there today.
I was thinking they were going to use the Phillips Road side because it seems more open and accessible, but they didn't, which I'm really
No, they didn't. They used the,
so our side is really going to stay nice and natural and access.
they
And
built a big road down from UP across. Yeah.
you can see it actually if you go to Phillips Road and go down, you can see the construction site across.
Yeah.
It's pretty massive, but they'll do restoration. It'll be fine when we're done.
Yep. Awesome. With that being said, and like Mary said, our next meeting is November 23rd. We look forward to seeing Sally. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Sylvia, all in favor?
All right.
Bye.
Thank you all very much. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you too.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Hope we can meet in person soon.
Not November.
All right. Bye-bye, y'all.